motherfucker stuck in 1989. That's why his album's called One Less G.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I did was, I'm thinking, Take Me Home.
We talk about that song all the time, too, so that's...
That song. Oh, my God.
Well, let's just jump right into it. Like, I'm sure we're gonna bounce around, but before we get into the, your background, talk about Take Me Home, because we can't just skip over that and come back to it.
I think Take Me Home was the first song I did for ICP. Before that, I'm joking, hold on. Violent J and myself, we were always just goofing around. So it started. I'm going to jump back even further. The summer of 2000, I met them. I met Alex, met Joe, and they kind of gave me a blank check, build us a studio. Okay. And it took a long time. It took 6 months. And I wasn't swinging hammers. There were dudes doing construction, but I was putting all the gear together, ordering stuff, and then trying to get it together in the studio. That's really hard. All these little tiny wires, little connectors. There's a lot to it, And so we did that. And as soon as the studio was up and running, it was January, right at the beginning of January 2001. And ICP was going out for a long time on the Bizarre tour.
Right.
So I think me and Joe, Violent J, we messed around with some things a little bit. And he's like, okay, just record some things. Get some bands in here. He had a couple bands. He sent me Razor Ray's band. They were called...
Was that Harm's Way?
Harm's Way, yes. So he sent them to me. Just, record a bunch of things in here just to work out the bugs. Cool. So we did Harm's Way. Who else? Another thing, was it called Wolf or something like that? I can't remember. Another metal band. They were fun. And then one of my bands I took in there. It was called Give. And then finally they came back. They were in and out on tours. And they came back and I think we messed around with Take Me Home. And then, that was it. And then, which that ended up on a Forgotten Freshness, I think.
Right.
And then they had a bit of a break from touring, and we did at the same time. We would do I think we would do 2 or 3 days at the Lotus Pod, and then we would be recording vocals on songs for Tales from the Lotus Pod, the first Dark Lotus record. And at the same time, the next day we were doing the second Riders, the Psychopathic Riders record. And then they'd go to Mike Clark's for a few days, and they would be recording over there, and I'd be making tracks at the Lotus Pod. So we were just going back and forth. It was 2 weeks, 2 records completely done in 2 weeks.
Jeez.
and the shit was great. I think it was great. And I remember I went to the store one day, into 9 Mile in Woodward. It was a bookstore, and they had a Billboard magazine. So I went in there and opened it up. I had a #1 record. Fuck. Shit, that was a nice day.
That's good. So let's bounce back a little further than that, if you don't mind. We don't always going into origin stories, but I think yours ties in because you're local to Detroit. So if you don't mind telling us, what side of town were you from? What was it like growing up in Detroit?
I was born on the east side, 9 in Gratiot. But then I lived at 8 in Gratiot, 7 in Chalmers, Eastern Market. I lived all right downtown. And then when I met ICP, I was living at 9 in Woodward, in that area, kind of Midtown, just north of the city.
I was just over there today getting an apple fritter at the apple fritter over on 9 Mile. So.
All right. Yeah. So I'm guessing, you're deep there.
Yeah. So, we're local, so.
Yeah, cool. So I've just been around playing guitar in all kinds of bands, rock bands to pop things to everything you can imagine. I was in a folk band for a while, heavy rock to 70s rock, all these things. And then I'm going to tell you, I'm going to date myself. I got a drum machine and a tape machine in 1988. And I've been making tracks since then. And literally every day, I would practice guitar every single day of my life. Once in a while I went on a vacation for a weekend. And I would take a guitar with me. But every day I would be making tracks. And so, all through the 90s, I was doing this stuff. And I mean, a bunch of stuff that came out. it was from like 1992 to 1995, like tracks that I made then, and then came out like on Zug Island or ICP, all kinds of stuff like that. So yeah, that's where I came from. And I'm always making tracks. I worked at different studios around Detroit. Yeah, that's it.
And before you came back, you went to school out in Boston, correct?
Yeah. How did you know that?
See, so we do a little research here. Actually, yeah, one of my very good friends also went out there, and when I told her, she's like, "Oh, I never knew." So. I found it interesting that the name kind of rang a bell to me. So you obviously picked up a guitar when you were a kid, and then you went out there to kind of perfect it, and then you brought it back here with everything you learned.
Yeah, hopefully. I like to think so. And that was Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts, and it was just a great overall music education. It was awesome. And I don't know that you really need it to make rap tracks, but I do Joe, Violent J, and the guys, they usually call me for more complicated pieces of music, Sometimes it's just simple rock or rap tracks, but sometimes it'll get a little bit more, and I liked it. I like having this knowledge, so it's good.
That's kind of something we picked up on when we did the Lotus season, because you have the 3 different producers, and we always said your track's going to have a lot of layers, it seems like, a lot of parts built on it. You can't really tell where they're coming from almost.
Yeah, I tend to overdo it, especially when I send tracks to Psychopathic. I'll overdo it, and then a lot of times we'll peel things back, take this out, take that out, and put this in over here and that over there. And I just give them a lot of stuff to work with, and then sometimes it's all in at once. So, yeah.
And you mentioned, you came back to the city and you were in multiple bands, and then you finally got hired by them. How did that go? I mean, we've heard that you answered an ad. I guess even before that, what was your knowledge of the Juggalo world? Were you aware of them? Were they just kind of in your periphery? And how did you get connected to them from there?
Yeah, I obviously I definitely heard of ICP. I definitely heard their music, and you'd see them on the cover. I remember, maybe it was like 96 or 97. There was a Violent J was on the cover of a Metro Times. It might have been Orbit, like a local entertainment magazine, weekly thing. And he just was on there. He smoking a roll of $100 bills or something. He had a bunch of money. It was a cool picture. I'm like, who is this? And so yeah, definitely followed that. And but I didn't know the Juggalo world. I didn't know there was a whole world to it. Good God, there was this whole thing. I didn't. Thought it was just a group doing their thing. But at the same time, I knew Mike Clark since the mid-90s. I was friends with him. So, and I recorded at his studio. I had a band. We went over there. And so, he hit me to all that stuff. And, yeah. And then, I went in and yes, I saw an ad. We always tried to make it sound cooler, but I found an ad in the Metro Times. There's a record label studio looking for an engineer. Okay, cool. So I went over there, called up, met with Alex, and he's like, all right, let's go. Let's do this. I made a lot of records before that. I had some, before that, I had some stuff sell 2 million in a month, as an engineer, a bunch of things like that. So, I had a lot of experience at that time. And so, yeah, we started working. I put the studio together, and yeah, and then away we went. So, and a lot of it was an accident too, because I was just an engineer there, which is great. It was a good gig. And then one day we were at Mike Clark's and hanging out. ICP, they were doing something there, and I had a CD of just tracks I made, and I gave it to Violent J. I'm like, will you check this out? I was just goofing around, and he put it in and put it in a Walkman, put headphones on. Cool. And I think Shaggy was in the booth rapping or something, and he put this on and flipped through and he said, cool, He's like, all right, so meet me tomorrow at noon at the Lotus Pod. Okay, cool. Next day, he pulled that track in and he was putting vocals on my track. And that was Are You Wicked?
No.
And then the next day, we did Run. And the third one on that track was Super Villains or Super Duper, that came out on the Wraith. And then he's like, "You got any more?" And I'm like, "I got hundreds, you know." And then he's like, "Well, go make more, you know." I'm like, "Cool." So that's how I, a few months in, kind of transitioned to be an engineer and writing music for them. You know, writing, producing music, however you want to say it. So.
Yeah,
So that was a long answer.
No, that's good. You've touched on a lot of things we were going to ask already. So you and
the paper thing, I never how did you guys know that? You guys are digging deep because I wanted to make it sound cooler throughout all the years. I really didn't admit that to very many people.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We can add the paper because it doesn't sound as cool. But like I said, I knew Mike Clark for a long time. But it was add in the paper. And Mike Clark he said he was always really supportive of me taking that role, you know, so that was cool.
I guess that's an interesting point, and we didn't mark any of that down for a question, and usually we say this beforehand, but it's funny that you say you had a relationship with Mike Clark because there may be a narrative out there that whenever Psychopathic shuffles, quote unquote, in a producer and one out, that there's like bad blood, like you replaced him and you're a different era and then you left and he came back, or you have new guys kind of. It's like, that's not necessarily the case, I would imagine, unless there is some kind of, I wouldn't say friction, but do you have like a competitive kind of, trying to one-upsmanship with guys like that?
Obviously, it's going to be a thing. And like I said, and Mike told me this. He was like, he told me this in like 2001, and we've talked about it a bunch. And he's like, he said that he was always glad that I was the one that took over because he left completely for a while. For a while, we were going, doing different things, like working on things together. And then he left completely. And so I've always been his friend. I dig Mike, and I think he's a legend and really talented. He created musically. He created this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
That was him. I think, from what I can tell. So, I don't know. And I've hung with him. I probably haven't seen him in a few years since the pandemic and all that. But and he was out on the Kid Rock tours. He'd come through Nashville, and I'd go hang with him. So we've always been cool. But at the same time, obviously, there's probably going to be a thing. It's just like breaking up with a chick, and all of a sudden your friend's kicking it with this chick, and you're like, no, it's cool, good, but it still be a thing to it, So be like, that's a little weird, but it's good. I'm good. I'm done, but like I say, me and Mike are good friends. So, and we've actually talked, and you guys got to bug him about this if you talk to him. We talked about doing a record together. I'm like, Mike, why don't you and I do a record? And like, that's stupid. Why haven't we? So that'd be nice.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
You make a parody of the Mike and Ike shirt,
There you go.
Like a Mike.
Get working on that, Chris. Put that on your list of things to parody.
Yeah. So it was always, like I said, it was always cool with us, So.
Is that it for our first set of questions, Chris? Is there anything else there that you want to dive into, or you want to?
No, I mean you kind of touched on it too. We were wondering, you mentioned bringing tracks to them, and they became future songs. But yeah, apparently they did, as you pointed out, which is kind of cool to hear. That was interesting.
The River from Crack Tiles, I did that in '92. Those tracks are what's on the record. Slam, I did that in '95. Like I said, there was a bunch of stuff, and then there's a bunch of different things, like an idea from this song, idea from that song, and put it together. And so, but most of it was all new stuff, like making it as we go, So
all right. So you kind of touched on this, but we're going to kind of jump right in. As our listeners may or may not know, we do seasons for each album. And our second season was Dark Lotus Tales from the Lotus Pod, which has your fingerprints, Mike Clark's, Fritz, pretty much everyone's.
I didn't know Fritz was on it that much. I know he did that, the last song,
Juggalo Family.
I know he did that song, but did he do? I didn't know he did any others. But
from what we gathered, I don't have the list in front of me. Was it 4 songs, Chris, and
I know that. I thought it was just me and Mike.
I guess, and we can get into that a little bit, but from what we gathered, he created a couple over at the Disc. They brought them over to you. You recreated / spiced them up, but the only one that you didn't was Juggalo Family, and that was his original guitar riff on that one.
No, actually, no. I'm on 4 songs. I worked on 4 songs for Tales from the Lotus Pod, and those were all created right then and there. There were no other. I created them, and then they came in the studio the next day, and everyone sat down and was writing verses, and like someone would come up with an idea for a hook and that. So none of it was like touched up from anyone else's stuff.
So for you, we have Alibaba, I Hurt Myself, Call Upon Your Gods, and The Swarm.
Yeah, and Swarm I love that song. That's my jam.
Yeah,
and maybe the intro. We could never figure out who did the intro. So
maybe I would have to listen to it to figure out. But yeah, that was all brand new stuff there. And I don't know. I might have mixed it. May have mixed all the songs, possibly. But I know that like Juggalo Family, they recorded their vocals at the Lotus Pod, so I would have done that, and then probably mixed it. But Mike Clark, I imagine Mike Clark mixed his own productions, at his place.
Yeah, and then
to make it matters worse, that's an album that started and stopped so many times and never had any credits listed anywhere. It was just a blank book. So for years it was lore of trying to figure out who was on what, who did what.
Wow, yeah, I guess so. It was supposed to. They were supposed to do that record years before that. Is that the case?
Yeah.
I didn't really know that.
And that kind of leads into like one of our first questions with you. So again, like the long story short of Lotus, their first song that they did was in 98, right, Chris? And that came out on Jekyll Brothers in 99. And then it just,
I had no idea.
It was just start and stop of like, Blaze is going to be on it. No, he's not. Vampiro is going to be on it. No, he's not. We got this new person. No, he's not. Like they talked about doing a song with Godsmack, right?
Yeah.
Like crazy.
And it's just, for a second.
It was like 3 years of whatever. And, and just, I guess that's a question that we always wonder is, you jumped right into that. Like, did you feel, maybe apparently not now, did you feel the pressure of like their most anticipated CD coming out? It was like 3 years in the making and you're just new to them and they're like, yep, we're working on this project. And it was your first true project that you worked on. Any pressure, any knowledge of the lore of that? Or it was just a day job for you and you're like, oh, I got a couple songs and let's make it happen.
I didn't feel any more pressure than ever anything else. It's just like, let's go in and do the work. It was pressure, but it was I could handle it. It was good pressure. It was fun. It was inspiration. Good inspiration. I did not know that it was a project that they were going to do for years. I had no idea. I mean, maybe I heard this 10 years ago. I don't think so, but I think it's the first time I ever heard this stuff.
We just assume that
I had no idea.
We assume that like your first day in the studio, they just dump like all this stuff on you in different pieces, and they're like, "Yeah, put this puzzle together," but you're half blindfolded and some are backwards, and just go to it. But
it was like that. But Alex and Joe would come to me and be like, "We're doing this project. You ready?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." Because I was just there every day, anyways. I was at the studio. For a long time, and like I said, we started on one of their breaks from the Bizarre tour. So yeah, I wasn't freaking out. I was like, yeah, let's go to work, cool. And I was excited. I was really excited. It was just, and it was a time where it was just so much fun because every day someone would pop in, like you'd just be working in the studio, doing some random thing and, or working on a specific record. And Twisted would just walk in the studio, like they would have a meeting with Alex, the president of the label at the time. And they would just be like, hey, and they'd be like, hey, jump on this verse. They're like, okay, cool. And ABK and Blade, everyone would and it was just this whole community that was just awesome. And everyone was just jumping on people's stuff. It was really spontaneous. And it was just a really great time. And then we would run off and like we'd go to lunch and then like go play laser tag or go ride go-karts or something and come back and work on the record. Like a lot of stuff like that was happening. It was just so much fun. Like just a great group of people. So,
and we talk about that kind of often too, that kicked off because they had their own studio. Like, I know they had the means and the money and the people to do it, but like, if it doesn't matter if you have all the talent in the world, if you have to pay someone X amount of money per hour, you don't get the time for that. Like, and some of these songs, we imagine you and Jay literally working 24 hours, just middle of the night, being like, oh, this is good. We have time. Let's add this. Let's bring in another voice. Let's, double this up. Like, if you have the time and the means, and it shows in that era of albums for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what happened. Joe was and still is a workaholic, and I was too. I was like, let's go. 12, 14, 15-hour days in the studio. And, I got friends that are literally digging ditches for a living right now. So that's freaking hard, but sitting behind a computer, cutting vocals, mixing, that's kind of hard too for 15 hours, So there was some tough days, but I was like, let's go, man. This is great. So now I'm a little older. I'm a little more tired. I'm like, I got to go take a nap, after 6 hours. But it was like, a lot of people were putting in work, but like a lot of me and Joe just putting the hours in. So exactly what it was like. It was cool.
That's good. And it, like we said, it shows, with the different layers and sounds. It's definitely
1,000 vocal doubles on this chorus.
That's as we did Lotus deep dive, we're like, they really went all in on the backward recordings. Like at some point, like, okay, this is a scary, spooky message. And at some point, like, oh, they're just having fun putting anything backwards because they want the backwards talking on the back of the tracks there.
Yeah, there was some weird stuff like that. That was cool sounding, I think. So
yeah, oh yeah,
it was. What is it? We kind of stole something maybe from another song. What was it? Oh, that was on a Crack Tiles song. I'm not going to say what song it was, but we took something from another record that we were working on. It was Joe's idea, so okay, let's put that in there.
Well, we'll save that for the Crack Tiles season. Yeah. We'll come back and talk to you about that.
As we still have it up in the air on who did the intro on Lotus. Didn't the Lotus intro get in some trouble for a sample on there?
Okay, you might be right. You might be right. I don't remember exactly who did that, but it might have been. There was this group, kind of like, I think it was just a couple dudes that would make these records, and they were like, it was just like weird, spooky music for like Halloween parties or haunted houses. It wasn't like their record. And I think someone at the label really liked this, and they pulled from that at times. And they've since settled this issue with the company and the publishers, And that was a thing. I mean, I didn't, at that time, like I said, Joe was like, put this here and put that there, put that in the intro. Okay, cool, boom, done. And then like I would go to the president of the label at times and say, hey, there are some samples on this record. And he's like, cool, I'll take care of it. Did he or did he not? I don't know. Sometimes he did, sometimes he didn't. So that was out of my hands.
Part of that time frame, that early 2000s was almost the tail end of the Wild West when it came to.
You're right, yeah.
That.
Exactly, yeah. They were starting to crack down on that stuff at that time, So, but original hip hop, like I heard cats talking like talking on a documentary that I seen, and they were like, hip hop. It was kind of like an unwritten rule in hip hop. You couldn't make original music. You had to sample, and that was the whole thing of like two turntables putting different pieces of music together, a beat and music, and then rapping over it. That was the whole thing. And then we got samplers, and we would sample tracks, but. That's what hip hop was based on. And
right.
So, and then it just kind of, I think it just weeded out after a while. So,
yeah. And we touched on this a little bit, but your knowledge of Psychopathic before you started there, obviously living in Detroit, you've heard of them, but the subculture that they grew, like when did you realize that? Obviously, like we said, you're in the studio, you're making music. Did you go to like a Hollow Wicked or a gathering or a show where you just walked in and you were like, holy shit, this they're playing my song. There's 1,000 people here who are vibing to it. Like, when was that aha moment that you went from behind the board to I'm part of something bigger?
Yeah. Okay, one thing way back, let's see, I'm going to say 1996. I performed at a place called the Ritz. You guys know what that? Yep. Remember that?
Ritz in Roseville.
Yeah, and I remember Mike Clark saying that he was just doing tracks for this group, ICP, and all of a sudden he showed up at the Ritz, and it's, I don't know, what is it, 1,500 people? And he said he got in the door, and that's as far as he could get because it was just jam-packed full of people. He couldn't even step in the building, really. And it was right then. And that day, that night, they played an early show, and that night I played there. And I didn't know much about them. And it's funny thing, they left a trampoline. Apparently, there's a trampoline on stage that would jump off and jump in the audience. And they left the trampoline. It was broken. And someone on our, we had kind of a road tour at the time, and they grabbed that trampoline and we took it home and fixed it. And we had we had ICP's trampoline, in our apartment in downtown Detroit. So that was my first run-in with them, or not, first time I'm like, oh, yeah, it's ICP's. And then seeing them on magazine covers in Detroit, and then, knowing Mike Clark, hearing about it. But I didn't know. I mentioned before, I didn't understand. I didn't know the Juggalo culture, the subculture, like how big it was. And then on Bizarre tours, I don't know if it was before Dark Lotus, but I would fly out. Like Joe would be like, Mike, come meet us. And I flew out to Iowa, me and Blaze, because Blaze was joining that tour. So me and Blaze caught a plane. And then I remember we were sitting on this little ass plane because we took a big plane somewhere and then had to take this little plane to where ICP was performing. And it was an outdoor thing. It was huge, And we were just freaking out. Me and Blaze are tripping on this plane. Like, geez, like, you call it a Buddy Holly, So then I jumped on the bus and traveled with them for like a week or two, and Mars was on that tour. So it was Blaze, Mars. Who else? I don't know if there was anyone else.
Yeah, there was some weird rock band.
Who's that?
Yeah. Chris, you're cutting out.
Break it up.
Yeah, your internet's bad, Chris. I wasn't Suicidal Tendencies, was it? It was
No. Before that, Coal Chamber was on the tour, but that was before me. That was like a few years before that. But so that was my first introduction to the culture of the Juggalo subculture. Seeing that like all over the country, and I'm like, I didn't know there. And then me and Joe first hanging out one day. He was talking about all these bands. They toured with this and that, and I'm like, he actually got mad at me. He was like, because I asked, so who was a headliner? And he was like, "Fuck you mean who's a headliner?" He's like, "We were. We don't open up for anybody." And I'm like, "Cool. I didn't know. I didn't know. All over the country. I didn't realize. Yeah, I didn't know that they were that big. But yeah, it was just killing everywhere we went, or they went. And then that was my first introduction. And then we do Dark Lotus, and they performed. I went to the Gathering that year, just hanging out, and I think, did they open up with the Swarm? I think they did, because Dark Lotus, that was the first Dark Lotus performance. I think the only with that lineup.
Yep.
And that was 2001, July of 2001 in Toledo.
Correct.
Is that right?
That is correct.
And, just a big room, and they came out with it. That was fucking great. Yeah. And hearing like these songs I worked on in this environment, just thousands of people going bananas. That was it. Your question. That's my long answer. That was my aha moment. Like this. Yeah. Wow.
Quick little research here. The entire Bizarre tour, which went on forever. Opening acts included Blaze, Insolence, Mars, Chuck D's Confrontation Camp. I don't remember that at all.
What's that? Wow.
Suicidal Tendencies, and Nashville Pussy.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Yeah. What a good time. It was a great time just hanging out on that tour. We had so much fun. And, I hung out with Mars a lot, and Patrick, I forgot his stage name, the hype man and stuff. And Mars was going through that transition of like being convinced by Joe to be more like, try to be a Juggalo act. They wanted to bring him in. And so he started painting then. And it was what a great time we had, it was fun. And then just, I was new, and, I was new to the scene. So everything's always cool when there's a new person in the scene. You're always having fun and getting along, so.
Yeah. So yeah, Dark Lotus. You want to Anything else on Lotus that you want to touch on, Chris? Those last couple? You're not even looking. And just, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We did have the one question. We were there was a female singing on it. Was that someone locally you knew? We couldn't figure out the name to that. On I Hurt Myself, I believe it was.
Yes. Doesn't say any. There's no credits anywhere.
There's no liner notes.
Tell me why. Edit?
Yes. I guess you kind of answered it before that they had you bringing in, different bands to check things out. Like, you had such an outreach in the local community. If you needed, a drummer or a female voice, were you just like, hey, I got it, boom, and the next day you had one of your friends or someone in another band coming in, and you just, like, you incorporated new voices in there? I assume that's what you did.
And that is for a future date. If you want, that's how Zug Island started. But anyways, back to Tell Me Why I Hurt Myself. I think, I can hear the voice in my head. That was a chick I was kicking it with at the time. And they're like, we need a chick on this. I'm like, go call her up. She lived close by. Boom, popped in, sang that. And I don't even want to say her name.
That's all we need to know. We can leave it at that.
I gotta say that. I mean, it's fun for a minute, but Jesus Christ. I think that's who. I'm pretty sure I can hear that screeching voice in my head.
Sorry to bring up such a.
I don't mean to be mean, but it's just fun. Wow. But it was I forgot all about that.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah,
right.
And just a random last question for Lotus, because we joke about it throughout the season. Do you consider yourself a member of Dark Lotus? As a producer, as a whatever you did behind the scenes, do you just see it as those 6 guys, or do you really see yourself as part of that group?
No, I never would see myself as a member. I just worked on their record, and it was an honor to have been able to. But no, I never saw myself as that. I mean, it would have been awesome to have gone and performed, which I may have. Right? Well, I know I've gone on stage for the last song. We may have done some of that stuff before, right? I don't know. But no, I'm just I'm working on this is their record, and then. That's it. So
it's all good. We joke about it. So
I'd love to have been considered. That'd have been great, because I would have gone up and played guitar or something. The Bloody Brothers. We had a concert. Apparently, that was another thing that was supposed to happen for years, like the hillbilly hip hop thing. And I was going to play a electric banjo live, and through a big Marshall stack. That was some talk back then, So yeah.
That would have been a good one. And then, 20 years later, that finally came out with one single, right?
Which song?
Just was it last year, Chris? It was during the pandemic.
It was fairly recently.
Yeah, they did they did that Hootenanny show in West Virginia, and they gave away a Bloody Brothers song.
Yeah. What was? Yeah, I think I did that song. I'm pretty sure I did.
I thought you did too, but I don't know it off the top of my head. Yeah,
you're right. Because I wrote in 2001, I wrote a bunch of tracks for that, because I thought we were going to go ahead and do that. And I think I've said this before in an interview, but they ended up being, one of them is Small Town on Crack Tiles, the Zug Island record, and another one just came out. I think it was called The Wolf on Hell's Pit, Hell's Cellar. It was the leftovers from Hell's Pit. And then there's a third one I wrote that was just like that. It had banjos and fiddles and stuff. And I can't find it. I don't know what happened to that track.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I got to find that somewhere, right? And I had them called, I named them 1, 2, and 3, and I can't find number 3. And it was just like that. I'm going to try to, I should try to find it harder. I don't know.
That's funny.
That was cool.
The one that just came out was called After Murder Sunrise.
Yes.
So
yep.
There you go. I wouldn't remember that either. So
let me see.
It has you as a credit. So
oh, cool. Then I did do it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, good job.
Yeah. Because sometimes there's so many songs. I mean, 250 now. It's I don't know, 270. I don't even have a count. And like I said, another couple hundred that are still in waiting. I was at a party performing with Zug Island in Buffalo, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. And I'm like, and they're playing music, Juggalo music, and I'm like, what is this? Why do I know this song? And they're like, it's you. Like, what? And usually I remember them, but sometimes I forget. So
I can see that,
especially from this time frame that we're digging into, because, like you said, there's so many projects, so many people in and out. Who knows what was used, where it wound up.
Yeah, yep, it's like that. Yeah.
All right. So Dark Lotus, as we said, that came out in July of 2001, which is an eternity ago. Great moment. Yeah.
Good God.
And so right at the same time, or shortly thereafter, as we jump forward, our current season that we're talking about is Blaze's One Last G in the Hood.
Yeah,
so that came out in October of 2001. So we can only assume that there was a little bit of overlap, or at least that was your next big project.
Yeah. Let me think. Because right after Dark Lotus, we did that 2 weeks, Dark Lotus and Riders, and then I'm pretty sure ICP was still going out on tour, but they would come home here and there, like for a week, and then head back out. So, and Alex just came to me like, hey, I think we're signing Blaze to the label. You and Twisted are going to go in the studio and work on this record. I'm like, cool, awesome, here we go. And so I got to work with Jamie and Paul. Like, we were in there. I don't remember how long it took. But that was right in I would say spring of 2001. And that was just a great time. And Blaze was coming in and out of town. Like, he would fly into town, spit a bunch of raps, fly back out on the tour. Like, he'd be in town for a couple of days and then head back out. And so that stuff was going on while me, Jamie, and Paul were working in the Lotus pod. And, we were just creating tracks. And then someone told me this years later, like 6, maybe 10 years later. The original concept of Blaze, You Dead Homie, was supposed to be, like, when it was first announced, and his whole thing was supposed to be a throwback, like an 80s sounding hip hop record. Did you guys know that? I had no idea. Someone told me this. I think I was in like Denver, Colorado. And someone was talking about that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I had never heard this. No one ever told me that. No one ever came to me and said, this is the concept. It's supposed to sound like this. Maybe that's not true. I don't know, but someone told me that. And someone kind of unrelated. Someone that was like an intern or assistant at Psychopathic 20 years ago. So, and it was not, and it was great. I love it. But it was not my idea to put all those guitars on there. Jamie and Paul were just like, let's put guitar on this. I'm like, cool, okay, so it kind of came out like a lot of guitar stuff on there, which is, I like it. That was fun, but it wasn't even my idea. Those guys were pushing for that, so it was great, and just great times, fun tracks, and just bouncing back and forth with those guys. And, another thing, just a great time. And Blaze, his voice, he's just got this enormous voice, right? Just awesome voice and great flow. Yeah, that's what I remember.
And that's funny that you touched on a bunch of our questions all in one answer. You're right. Like, I mean, his gimmick was that he was stuck in 1989, so you would think it would have an older sound, but we have kind of, I don't even know if we've talked about this, Chris, like in depth on the podcast, but like his first EP was straight him, Twisted, and Fritz, and it has a very old school East Side grimy sound to it. And we've debated, like, coming to Psychopathic, was there a concerted effort to like change his sound, make it more sounding like everyone else on the label at the time? And it sounds like there wasn't, but it kind of turned out that way. Like, no one told you this needs to sound like it came from 1990. It's just the music you guys wanted to make.
Yeah, I had no idea, like I said. And at the same time, I was still a new guy there. So, I was, part of the production team. But, I would say Jamie and Paul were more the executive producers, making like the executive decisions, final decisions, and it wasn't even like back and forth like that, but I was just following their lead on that, And then, like I say, I heard it's supposed to be like this, and I had no idea. But I love the way it came out. I think it's an awesome record.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of our favorites.
I don't think the sound didn't to me, supposed to be that way, but yeah, the character. But then it seemed like Peter mentioned that they sprinkled on a little bit more to make it more wrestling comic book theatric character, because in the first one he's gangster rap, and now he's got maggots on his face and he's coming in and out of the coffin and he's a zombie. They kind of add a little more psychopathic element to that character, I felt. Yeah,
you're right. That is it. So I'm sure that Jamie and Paul had a direction, and I was just like, let's do. They were like, let's do something like this. I'm like, cool, there we go. So they knew him better than me because he was a part of their camp, right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was always and then Blaze brought in ABK, and then there were all kinds of guests on One Last G also, right? I think everybody's on it, right?
Yeah, there was the song at the end with everybody. Sin was on it. That was his first time we saw Big G Money on there. Who else was on there? Because there was one woman's voice, but it was just on that voicemail.
Same girl.
Yeah.
Let me think. No, there's a girl. There's a chorus on that record with a girl singing. Yeah, it's the same girl.
The nasty one, yeah.
Yeah, from Nasty. The same girl from Dark Lotus. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
What else we got on One Last G?
I guess my one question just pops up because Blaze was, in and out on tour recording vocals. Were you working with him much during that time, or was he just kind of, you had the vocals and you were working with Twisted to piece it together?
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of time together, Blaze and I. And then what's the song? There was one I created the track. It was just me, and Blaze was there. I was creating this track, and what the heck was it? If I hear it, I'll think of it. But there was stuff like that happened. That he was there present, and give me an hour, I'd do this track, get it together, and then it takes more than an hour, but we'd have a basis of something he could rap to it, and then we add more later. But so it was always different. Sometimes he'd be around for a couple of weeks, sometimes just a few days, and I could be wrong too. This is 22 years ago. Exactly 22 years ago. So maybe a little more, but so that's how I remember it. So yeah.
It's funny that you mention how he was in and out of the studio and on tour, because that brings up what we just talked about recently and some of the funniest things on that CD. The skit at the end where you guys called him. So, I mean, we could have a million questions, but I'm sure you're going to have a good story that has all of that combined. So you go right ahead.
Yeah, we were like, okay, we need a skit at the end. And then there was an assistant engineer at the time at the Lotus Pod. There was someone I knew that was an assistant at the studio I worked at before. It was called Harmony Park, downtown Detroit. His name was Todd. Everyone nicknamed him Huggy Bear, from Starsky and Hutch. And that's what we blamed it all on. And he was kind of mad at that skit. He's like, "Fuck, man." And so, we had Alex come in, and we'd always have there was a landline phone sitting there. We'd always call someone and have prank calls and record it, make them skits. So same thing. We called Blaze up, and y'all know, Alex is like, "Yo, you got to come back. This guy, Huggy Bear, was in there, and he erased all the files." And Blaze was really mad. He was like, "Oh my God, you got to be kidding me!" He was like, I'm like, "That's not nice, man. That was a little hardcore." Say everything's erased. But and then we hung up, and he's probably his head is spinning for a while, and then someone called him and said, "Hey, we're just kidding. It was a skit." So I thought that was a little hardcore to leave him hanging like that. But that was just a funny skit we did, and another thing too, a funny skit. About 10 years ago, someone called my phone. This has nothing to do with it, but and they left a voicemail in there, and they kept calling back, and it was this obnoxious voicemail. And I'm pretty sure it was a skit. I think there was someone who was trying to get me on a skit, and I think it was Twisted actually when they were still on the label. And they said that they were part of Wicked Wisco, some crew. I've seen their name around, at gatherings and stuff. I think I met some of them, but they were all pissed off at me because I was supposed to do a track for someone and do it. And they were like, "Man, fuck you," and all this stuff. And I was just like, I was just like, I put it on speakerphone, and I was with this girl at the time, and she's like, we're just cracking up, like, dude, who the fuck is this? I don't know who you are. And then I swear it was Jamie from Twisted. It really sounds like him, man. And I'm just like waiting for this to come out. I think maybe I didn't play along enough, because I'm like, this has got to be some bullshit. But someone put that skit out. That was funny as hell. If it was a skit, it kind of seemed like it. Maybe it was real. Maybe these guys are ratted. I don't know. But it was funny as hell. We were laughing our asses off, and I was just waiting for a call. Like, okay, like maybe George is going to call me. Like, hey, can we use that as a skit? It never happened. So that kind of stuff would happen often. And
and
skit.
Part of that skit that you had was that Blaze parked his car in your driveway and it got towed.
On that skit?
Yeah. Because so they called him and said that everything got wiped and he had to come back and record. And then you called him back and said, oh, by the way, they impounded your car. There's a bunch of papers that I gave to Alex. And they called it the Brown Bomber. Like, so did he really park his car at your house? Was that
because we... because we flew out on the Bazaar tour, and I flew home, after like a couple weeks, and he stayed out longer. So maybe he did park at my house. That could happen. I don't remember. I don't even remember that skit. Yeah. It's on there.
Yep.
Yeah, you're on there calling him.
Is it on the original or the re-release?
Is it on the streaming, Chris? No.
I think it's just on the original.
Yeah.
Copy. I gotta pull that up 'cause I don't remember that.
I haven't.
Yeah. So here we are. We're always calling each other and pulling these skits, and yeah. So
kind of back early on when you mentioned laser tag, I think Blaze threatens to take Huggy Bear down and laser tag at the end when everyone reveals that what happened.
He threatened him with a kickboxing fight at Zap Zone down the street.
Yeah, that's what it was at Zap Zone.
Yeah. That's great. I'm gonna pull this stuff up and listen again.
Yeah, we have it all on MP3. If you can't, I'm sure you can, but just shoot us a message and we'll send it right to you.
Yeah, I will. I have everything on CD, but
that's what
I haven't owned a CD player in like 10 years. I don't even have a CD player in my car. So,
It's terrible. What else we have here? The last unless, did you want to do anything else on One Less G before the last one,
No.
Chris?
No, that's good.
And maybe we'll talk about this if we ever talk to you in the future for a Zug Island season. But as I remember it, Zug Island's second performance was at the One Less G release party. And actually, now that I didn't even write it down, Zug's first performance, Blaze opened for you at St. Andrews, if I recall. Do you have any stories about just those couple shows, early days of Zug Island performing with Blaze?
Yeah. I remember the St. Andrews show, our first show, and it was like such a big deal. And I guess I don't remember who opened because I was so stressed out because, just it was our first show. And
just to interrupt you real quick, as I remember it, so it was you had to call and get on the list. Me and my buddy Rex went down there. We're not on the list. We were across the street at Sweetwater eating dinner. We walked over and Alex just popped out of the door and he said, "Let everyone in." And we walked in and Blaze was performing and it was okay. We're seeing Blaze in Zug Island. This is a good night. So.
I don't remember Blaze because I was probably backstage going over the set list and arguing with the band. But that was a great night. But our second show, yes, you're right. I don't remember it being his record release party, but I remember it was the Hallowicked after party.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And at the Majestic Theater, which is this amazing theater, really old legendary theater in Detroit, and it was just awesome. It was just jam packed, and we opened up for Blaze, and then it was just chaos. And it was Halloween. They had a bunch of pumpkins on stage, bales of hay. You guys were there, right?
Yeah, Chris has a funny story.
Bales of hay right to my head. I was covered in hay, pulling out of my shirt.
I do it.
I don't remember who threw it. Someone from the band.
You know what? I did it. I was sitting there. I'm playing. I'm like. it's Halloween. Let me see. I smashed some pumpkins through it, and then like threw the hay, busted the hay up. I don't know. I just went nuts. And then after, Joe's like, "You guys should do that every night. That should be your thing, you know." And then and I just remember at the end of the night, everyone's gone. They were just like shoveling up hay, and it was a huge pile of hay in the middle of the venue. I didn't get in trouble that time for it, because it was like a hardwood floor, so it cleaned up quick and easy. I'm sure someone was pissed about it. and then a year later, maybe 2 years later, we were playing at Harpos, and it was the same thing. It was Halloween, or around Halloween, and we were playing with Isham. I think I still have the flyer for that somewhere. And I did the same thing. I threw it all over the place. And then after the show, I was like, "Yeah, that's cool." And then I got surrounded by like all these 10-foot tall security guards, and the manager just coming at me, you know. And I'm like, "Oh man, I was just putting on a show, bro." And you know, he was really pissed. And we actually got charged. They charged us a bunch of money to
Harpos.
Yeah, they charged us. And I understand. Like later, the thing about Harpos is it was carpet. And I went there 10 years later, and that hay is still in the carpet.
That's probably still there because they haven't cleaned that fucking place. It's disgusting.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about Harpos is they haven't cleaned that since the 50s. First of all, Harpos, my dad used to go to see movies at Harpos. When he was a little kid, he would walk there, and it was a nickel to see a movie at that place. So here I am, and I'm like, yeah, I ruined Harpos. Like I said, I went there years later. All the hay is still there. So we had to pay all this money, like a cleaning fee. And I'm like, well, you didn't clean it.
No.
You know, but I understand. It was like I didn't realize at the time, but ICP has to pay for the cleanup of the Fago when they go to a venue, and it's all prearranged. You know, I just thought like, woo, throw shit everywhere, and it was funny. And I couldn't get out of it. They wouldn't leave me out of the building. Would let me out of the building, and they had all my gear, all the whole band's gear, until someone gave them money. You know, and. So actually, I went to Blaze. I went to Chris. I'm like, will you help me out here? Can you help manage the situation? Because he was like, at that time, he was like tour managing for Twisted as well. And yeah, it was a Twisted show. It was Isham, Twisted, and Juggalo. That's what it was. And so yeah, he handled it. He paid someone, and then it came out of our ass later. So thanks, Chris, for handling that, because I thought I was going to wake up in the alley a week later. And I was just like, screw you guys. I think I might have had a couple beers, and I was like, fuck this place. And then they surrounded me even more. And then I'm like, let me go get somebody. Let me go get someone with a checkbook. So sorry, Harpos. But at the same time, clean the damn place. Put some new carpet in.
Yeah.
Good God.
It was the one detail Jay left out when he said, "You guys should start throwing that hay." He left out we also pay that cleanup fee at the end.
Yeah, and I didn't think about it, because it was a whole year later. So that was a funny story. And it ended up being funny. We all made up, and the manager were cool. And so, yeah, we worked it out.
They should have used that hay to used for the stucco up in the corner. Were you at that show with me, Chris, where we looked over and there was just chunks of it fall? Like, we're like, let's do something with this place.
Like I say, that's a legendary place too. Like I say, my dad used to go there, and then I played there. I played there a long time before that. Probably different bands, and so yeah, to be play with Isham, Zug, and Twisted playing there was just an awesome night. I smashed the guitar. I would go out and buy a few really cheap guitars. And play it on the last song and then smash it, and then take all these pieces and put them back together and make another guitar out of it, and smash it at another show. And yeah, that night I smashed the guitar. And Alex was mad because the label bought us instruments. They bought me a couple guitars and stuff. And Alex, as soon as I walk up stage, he was like, "Is that guitar I bought you?" And I kind of told him, yeah, but I didn't tell him it was the cheap one. It was like this $50 guitar, it wasn't the $1,000 guitar, So he was kind of mad. I should have clarified that, I thought about it later. I'm like, maybe he thinks it's that one. But anyways, that was a good time.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we got anything else for One Less G, Chris? Do you think we're good on that?
No, I think so.
All right. So we fast forward.
So there was a lot of different cats on One Less G, right? I guess, I don't know. different producers here and there. Or was it just? Well, first of all, does Twisted even get credit for being producers on that?
The book is a little convoluted, go figure, but it says that you and Twisted have all credits except for when they note. And maybe about half the songs have either just you, just them, there's some Fritz in them. So it's a good, healthy combination of the four of you.
I think as we looked at the book and we went through it, we took it as you were the final stop on production, engineering, mastering. It seemed like Twisted maybe thought up some of the beats originally, worked with Fritz, had some started. I don't know. That was the confusing part when it came to the book, because it seemed like Twisted always kind of was starting things and then working with you or Fritz at the time to finish them.
You know what? Usually, like with me, Twisted and me working on stuff, we were like sometimes we would create stuff together, and then like sometimes we would, we would like I would have one or someone had a beat and then we'd add some more to it. Like someone would have just like a drum beat, and then we'd add music to it and everything. And then they would go in and sometimes they would like write a hook. Blaze may have had an idea already and they would write the hook for it and lay down a bunch of parts. And then, like I say, Blaze would come to town and do his parts. And that's what I remember, But yeah. That's it. Good times.
Yeah, good album. I'd say.
Really great album. That is good. And just so much creativity going on, and just fun throwing ideas back and forth, and yeah.
And then, so we go backwards in our history, but a little forward in the real canon, and we go forward 2 years into July of 2003. And our season 3 dealt with Violent J's Wizard of the Hood, which seems like it's kind of a you and him creation.
Yeah. But at the same time, all these other people came in. Like I was saying, they were still coming in. But him and I worked on that. And some of these really great records were really quick. Like that record, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Probably less because it was only like 8-10 songs. I love my dogs barking. But it was like Christmas time of 2002. So The Wraith was already out, and it was throughout the holidays we were making that record into early July. And then when it come out at the Gathering, right?
Correct.
It was always a great place to release a record.
Yeah.
And just another brilliant record. Violent J's lyrics, like I don't know anyone else that can write like a whole album that's one consistent story. It's just brilliant, and a lot of fun working on that one. And I love that record.
Did you, obviously, from our gathering of it, heavily influenced by the movie The Wiz? Was that all you, or was that him, or like did you know of the movie beforehand? Like how did that all come to be?
That was Violent J. That was his thing. Like we'd be flying in samples from that movie or the record or whatever. Yeah, that was his influence. I knew that movie, maybe seen parts of it when I was a kid, but and that was cool. Like that was a challenge matching up all those samples with the tracks, but it was fun. It was awesome, right? Like these crazy like flute music and all this weird stuff going on, So yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, it has a unique sound for sure, and you guys tailored it perfectly for the Juggalo realm, I thought.
Yeah. Another thing, I don't know if anyone noticed this, but Violent J is like, he wanted one thing, a beat, to go throughout the entire record, nonstop, and be pretty much close to the same tempo. I don't know if anyone has ever noticed that. And there's an 808 beat in between each song, and it's going through every song. So that was a challenge for me musically to have to write songs like that sounded different tempos, but that kept that same beat. So I was writing in some nerdy music stuff, but I was writing in 3-4 times, 6-8 time, half time, just to have a different feel for each song, but still keep that thing going, So, and I don't think anyone's ever noticed that. So, but I thought that was a really awesome element to that record too. So
yeah, we're not music nerds.
We've discussed how that's an album that it's just one song, like. And that's the reason we don't know. We don't have the musical knack to know that is in there, but yeah, your ear definitely is picking up on it because it flows no matter what changes. You got the Blaze song that gets heavy rocking more, but it all still continually flows through that whole album.
Yeah. It was. I'm glad someone noticed. it was different. That was a challenge to make all that happen, and it was cool.
How comfortable were you with your role at this time? So, I mean, you've been with the label for 2-3 years. Are you just comfortable with, hey, I have ideas, let's do it this way, or were you timid at all? How comfortable were you at Psychopathic by this time?
I don't know. I felt a part of the team, part of the family, at that time, pretty early, by the summer of 2001, one thing, I was not planning on sticking around that long. I was going to do some records and then, I didn't think I was going to last that long at Psychopathic Records, but after the first 6 months, I'm like, I'm never leaving. This is great. I felt a part of this family and this team. It's awesome. So yeah, by the time we were making Wizard of the Hood, there was always pressure to perform, and make a good record. But I wasn't tripping. I was always just let's go to work. And it wasn't just go to work, go do a job, but it was more excitement. Hell yeah, let's go do this, And sometimes, Violent J or someone else would be like, hey, I need beats for a record. Cool. I would just make beats for a couple of weeks. I'd have a CD of 10 tracks, and Violent J would say, I want these 3. And ABK would be like, I want these. And Blaze would be like, I want these, and I just pass out CDs and people would pick the ones they want. And then other times it would be they'd want something very specific, like Wizard of the Hood had to be a very specific thing, But sometimes it was just go make tracks, And one thing very specific, Violent J called me up and he said he was on tour. And he said he was being followed by crows. Everywhere he went all day, there was a flock of crows following him. It kind of made it sound like it was true. I don't know. And so I wrote this song, and I just thought it was the perfect mood for the song. And it ended up great, but I thought it was going to be on The Wraith, a song about crows. And I'm ecstatic. And it ended up being Hated Me by ABK on his, Hatchet Warrior, which is awesome. It came out great, but I was just I thought that was a perfect crow sounding track. I don't know. So sometimes that's an example where someone has something specific and then didn't even use it. Yeah. Let's give it. It was Joe's decision to let's put this on ABK's record, and then he wrote to it, So
that's cool. Yeah, we always wonder that too. Just how long things stay in the can, or do they hit the floor and get brought back for something? So stories like that are super interesting on where something came from.
I have about 3 or 4 tracks from back then that haven't been used. That's it. And then there was I found right when ICP performed, or they did the Christmas party in Nashville. I don't know, what was that, 5-6 years ago. I managed to dig up, because some things that computer systems have changed throughout the years, so they can't access all these old songs, the files, the computer files, the audio files. So I found a way to access a bunch of the records. So I dug up a bunch and I gave them to them at that Christmas show. And one of them, it was Wizard of the Hood, Cracked Tiles, and The Wraith. So we had all access to all those files again. Because someone, after I was living in Nashville, went in the Lotus pod and just started erasing hard drives. I'm like, this hard drive says The Wraith on it. I see The Wraith. And someone was like, I just erased this. What? And there was some other stuff on there. So pissed. So yeah, someone did that. I don't know who. So I had to figure out how to get these files off this whole other system. It was a really major ordeal. And there was a point to that. I think you asked a question, but I forget what it
was. Yeah, we forget too. It's okay.
We're known to go on tangents all the time ourselves, so no worries. We welcome it here.
Yeah.
And I know this fast forwards 20-something years, but you've performed at various gatherings. Were you at the gathering that they did Wizard of the Hood live?
Yes, I was there. I performed that year too, but I was there, and that was one of the just great moments of my life, seeing that happen. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And I think they should have taken that on the road. and just done that tour. But things were changing at that time, with some of the artists, and that was incredible. Were you all there? Did you see that?
We were not there. We've watched it on the DVD, but it seemed.
Yeah, it was.
When we kick ourselves for not attending, because it felt like the cap to that whole era that we've kind of touched on here. That was like almost the send off of it.
It was, yeah. That was the last time I seen those guys. That side of the camp. It was just incredible. I mean, I think they pulled an entire car out on the stage, and like all this. It was like theater, man. It was incredible. It was just like picture the record in your head. It was that.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely incredibly done. It wasn't just like some like, skits in the back. It was awesome.
Yeah. Touring that would have been difficult, but it would have been a nice, like 10 or 12 city, once in a while kind of thing. But they did it once.
I hope someday things change and that people can bring it back together, and they could do things like that together, and more Dark Lotus shows, and that'd be great.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know,
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, we're not here to dwell on that kind of thing. We try to stay positive, but we're with you.
That's good.
Did you have anything else on Wizard of the Hood, Chris?
No, those were we didn't have much to ask you about that because it was kind of straightforward as opposed to the other seasons that felt more convoluted with trying to figure stuff out. But that was one we just wanted to bring up because we love that sound, and that album, like I said, is just one song almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there were bonus tracks at the end of that, right? Like 2 or 4 of them, and they were in different versions of the record.
Yeah.
Those songs were cool too. Was it Multiple Myself and I can't remember the others. There were some really cool songs there.
Bloody Bitch Dead was one.
Yeah, that was. I mean, people were like, "Good God, that one was so hardcore!" Right? Is it just me? Like, that was a hardcore song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right? It's weird because they didn't fit the rest of the album. So even your 2 different versions with your 2 sets of bonuses, they didn't really. Oh, My Shine was on there, right? Yeah,
like kind of a Brock thing. Yeah. That was different. Yeah, I love that song.
Yeah, so they didn't really fit. I mean, they would have been interesting as a 4, somewhere else, but it's all good.
Yeah, just some bonus tracks. That's what it is.
That's why they're bonus, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those were our 3 of the 4 seasons that we've done so far, and cool. You were definitely a huge part of all of them, as you were, a huge part of Psychopathic, and I'm assuming in the future, our different seasons will probably cross paths with you again if we do something like The Wraith or Cracked Tiles. I mean, your fingerprint is on a lot of Psychopathic history, so
yeah, hundreds of songs. That's it's just weird to think. Like, good God, that's a lot. So I don't know who holds the record for having the most songs. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be up there. That's quite a lot.
Yeah,
the 2 mics. That's why the album's got to come out.
Yeah.
2 mics. I know, right? Mike Clark, call me, man. I'm gonna text him tonight, and we got to do a record. That'd be awesome, right? That'd be just like, I think that'd just be awesome in the Juggalo world.
Yeah, for sure.
We're here for it. We'll help push it over the edge.
Yeah,
I think you have a better shot of talking to him than we do, so that's on you.
To him at all?
No, we've tried to, but we reached out to him for our most tasteless season, but I don't know if he got back to us, right, Chris?
I think we just sent him like a DM, but I don't think he's ever been on Twitter. I think that's where we messaged him. We don't have any direct contact currently.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I haven't seen him in a few years, but hopefully, I see him on Facebook once in a while. So
we actually do have a connection, Chris. We could ask someone who works with them, but that's a whole
different story.
Yeah, that's a different story for a different time. We're not going to dig into that. So
to tie it all up, you guys are back. You and Mike Clark are back in the circle now, touching on stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working with them. I had a few years off there, but I mean, it goes back to 2012, 2011. I've been doing tracks for them. And then Zug Island re-signed for a little while and all that stuff. So, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So I've been with them since 2000. That's a long run.
It is.
It's good. It's been good.
So we're just wrapping up here real quick. Is there anything, coming up or that you're working on, Psychopathic or not, that you kind of want puff your chest out and let us know that you're proud about doing, or just what's going on?
Joe's always calling me, Violent J every couple of weeks, like, I need this track for this or that. Cool. So I'm always doing things. I did that. I did a song for that latest release, the Three-Headed Monster Tour, and it was a remake song. But and I wrote other songs for that. And then I think Joe said he was going to use this one for something else and that one for this. So I don't know. You never know. Every record that comes up, I throw in a whole bunch, and then they end up on this record, on that one, that one, that one. So yeah, kind of all over the place, which is great because some of the stuff just all of it just comes out awesome, and like it needs to be heard. So it'll be like a giveaway at the Gathering or the Hollow Wicked CD or something. So
yeah, it's interesting way that you put that. Like, yeah, if they just took 20 of your songs and put it on one album, then you're like confined to that time and space. Yeah. But the way that you're sprinkled into everything, you're like your DNA is throughout the history of a little bit here and there.
A lot of different stuff. So.
What about there was talk earlier in the year about re-release of Zug Island? Is that still in the works, or did that hit a roadblock?
Yeah, that's Joe's idea. He was like, let's do an anniversary release of it, which is this year is the 20th anniversary, and he talked about that and maybe even putting it on vinyl, stuff like that. And so I just forgot about it. I should bring that up again, and a vinyl release would be cool.
Yeah, I need that in my collection, so let's get that vinyl cooking.
Yeah, that'd be great to have on vinyl, right? I had all this stuff on vinyl, like I think I lost my Wraith vinyl is gone. I don't know where it is. So I had that on vinyl, right? They put that out, yeah.
Yeah, that's a little rarer one too, because I was only back in the original run.
And you had to get in the warehouse and beg for one, before it sold out. So I thought I had one, but I can't find it now. So. But I have a bunch of other ones. So.
Well, I think that's it for us. Unless Chris, you have anything?
No.
Cool.
Any parting words for you, Peasy Weezy?
No, man. Just what up, y'all, and thanks for having me on here. It's been fun. Hope it wasn't too long. Hope I didn't talk too much.
No,
we hope we didn't keep you too long. We appreciate you doing this.
I'm having fun,
This is all good. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time.
Yeah.